Hey, this is Blondeguygamer and welcome to another Kickback review. For this year's Halloween, we're going to take a quick look at Stasis, a science fiction horror-themed point-and-click adventure game. Stasis was made by a three-man team from South Africa called the Brotherhood and was already 3 years in development when they launched a Kickstarter in 2013, with an alpha demo to showcase it. The campaign successfully surpassed its goal of $100,000 and launched on August 31st, 2015 for the PC through Steam and Google Games. Now, unlike Neverending Nightmares that I covered last year, I didn't back the game at the time, but being a fan of games and movies like Dead Space and Alien, which the developers drew some inspiration from, I did get this not too long after it was released. Stasis takes place in the distant future on board a large research vessel called the Groom Lake in low orbit around Neptune. It's here that our main character John Marichek comes out of stasis, only to discover he's not on his ship, his wife and daughter are nowhere to be found, and has medical problems that need to be addressed. You thought waking up on Mondays was bad? So we take control of John to find treatment for his injuries and search the Groom Lake to find his family and the mysterious horrors surrounding the seemingly deserted ship and its massacred crew. The game plays with a point-click interface much like other games done in this genre, as you move John by clicking on where you want to go and using the mouse cursor that changes icons depending on what you place it over, such as an eyeball over something that gives you a text description on the bottom of the screen, or a hand on objects you can click on to interact with. Acquiring and using items you find along the way are also present, with your inventory being a quantum storage device that's accessed in the lower left corner. As such, you'll need to solve numerous puzzles involving using items by themselves or occasionally combining them. There is also plenty of computer and PDA logs left by the crew that not only give you some insight on the operations of the Groom Lake, can provide some vital information on solving a problem, sort of like how the System Shock games did that. The interface is simple, but functional for the most part, and a lot of the solutions and how you use items are pretty creative. Although you may need to write down some visual clues if you don't have a great short-term photographic memory like I do, and a couple puzzles do have portions you need to do trial and error even when you have most of a solution. Though thankfully this game otherwise doesn't fall in the stereotype of severe moon logic in other adventure games, and Stasis is an enjoyable, if oppressively themed, adventure game. In terms of the horror aspect, Stasis goes for a grotesque scientific experiments gone amok motif as you'll discover some disturbing and questionably moral projects that have gone out of control. There are a few startling moments, but it's the desolate atmosphere that is the most prevalent throughout the ship's empty, dark, and grimy corridors with eerie ambient background sounds that add to the isolation. Thankfully, you're not in constant danger and can go at your own pace, but there are still ways to die, so care is needed. If you do die, there are checkpoints, though manually saving and loading is the recommended method. There is also, shall we say, an alternative way to die that was actually one of the first stretch goals of the Kickstarter. By using certain items on John twice, you'll trigger suicidal animations. These just give you Steam achievements that are more so Easter eggs, albeit very morbid ones, even if a few seemed a little ridiculous. Speaking of morbid, the story definitely achieves that, which I won't spoil, but it's not cheerful, in case you couldn't tell so far. Not to mention some rather graphic moments, one in particular was pretty intense, so much so that I cropped out what exactly is going on here. Let's just say it involves surgery. Stasis is not for the faint of heart, but if you're like me and are used to that kind of visceral imagery from other games and movies of this nature, then you should be fine. The computer-generated and rendered visuals for a game made by a very small indie team is quite impressive and nails the horror science fiction aspect. Everything is shown pretty clearly in an isometric angle, and navigating and even backtracking across the set amount of areas is not a hassle, especially when you can double-click to have John run more quickly to them. After you treat his injuries in the beginning, of course. And soon after that you do meet another person, Dahi, that helps John and brings some conversations in the game other than John talking to himself in the slightly unsettling sounding robotic systems. I wouldn't say the voice acting is bad, but the sound quality and volume of voices can be a bit off at times, some more than others. I suppose it may be because most voices are broadcast through communication devices, but with no sound mixing options, you may need to read along to understand what is being said. Fortunately, that's my only gripe with the sound design, as the aforementioned ambience is well executed and the music that kicks in during appropriate times, composed by Mark Morgan and Daniel Sadowski, is good too. The former of whom also worked on the first two Fallout games and the Wasteland games, so his style of bleak melodies carries over quite well in this game too. Stasis is a game I did enjoy going through, if only to play a science fiction horror in a point-and-click adventure style game that works pretty well. So if you like any of those two aspects, then I do recommend this game. It goes for about $20 on Steam and Google Games, and it is a decent length adventure game. I'd say at the very least it's twice as long as Armor Krog, even when you know what to do. Or you can always keep an eye out for it to go on sale on both platforms, so either way it's worth a shot. Just be prepared for a more dire experience. One that will be appropriate enough for Halloween anyway. That about does it for this game, so I'll see you all in the next video.